I think I'm a pretty good Googler.
No, I'm just like going deep really doesn't imply, nice,
Yeah.
lovely, PG rated movie.
Nope.
Wow. Well, yeah.
There's Ross. No, it's 6:01. Time has crept
So
up
we're
on
just
us.
waiting on Carrie and Marcos.
Can you let the IV community room into the meeting?
Yes. Who is the IV community?
IV community room
this
is me.
you. It's you, right.
Is me. Oh, but with an audio loop probably.
I forgot we're doing the test today. Oh, really quick, Kirsten, while we're waiting, here's a when to meet.
Here's what?
I think there's an echo, Jay.
I finally realized.
Here's a doodle for our parking group to meet.
Okay.
Our parking group sometimes for the next week and a half.
Okay, awesome.
Okay. Jay, let me know when you're ready, and I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order.
I actually have it. Oh,
We lost you, Jay. You're muted.
can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. I actually have it set up now where Jonathan just adds the YouTube to the waiting room, and it starts streaming.
Okay, cool. Well, then I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded. Jonathan, can you do a roll call vote?
Yes, we have an echo though, I think, from the community room account.
From the interesting.
Okay.
I'll call the roll and we'll see if it keeps going. If you guys hear it from me. Carrie just joined. Okay, Director Brandt.
Here.
Dr. Flaherty.
Here.
Dr. Bertrand.
Here.
Dr. Aguilar.
Here.
Dr. Topliff.
Here.
Director Deschler.
Here.
All right. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place Aniscoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. With that, we're going to move to the consent agenda. Do any directors have items that they'd wish to pull?
I'll move approval of the consent.
Made by Bertrand. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Topliff. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote.
Director Brandt.
Yes.
Flaherty.
Yes.
Bertrand.
Yes.
Aguilar.
Yes.
Freeman.
Yes.
Deschler.
Yes.
Topliff.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Now we're going to move to the public comment period. This is the time for any member of the public to speak on any matter that is not on today's agenda. The board will not take action on any items that are brought up, except as provided for by law. Any request to speak on items not on the agenda, please hit the raise hand button or put something in the chat.
We got something emailed in, has to be read.
All right, go ahead with that, Jonathan.
Okay, it's from Mr. Neuschel. So he says, Isla Vista is filthy. I am writing with regard toward the filthy sidewalks, graffiti, and trash that is all over IV, and particularly Del Playa Drive. A year ago, I examined the totality of requests generated by the C-Click Fix application we are paying for and learned that the majority are from your hired help telling themselves to work. The app is a failure. Self-management does not work. You're collecting almost $1 million annually from our utility bills and cannot keep Isla Vista's sidewalks clean and our community free of graffiti. Taxpayers should not have to request cleanup or removal of trash or graffiti. We are not your employees. Our taxes pay you to perform that service. We need a manager who walks our streets daily and instructs workers to clean sidewalks and pick up trash, rotating throughout the neighborhood. Make sure that the trash cans in downtown IV are not overflowing. Hire a company to wash the sidewalks and IV regularly. Photograph and report graffiti to the police. Hire a manager with enough civic pride to take responsibility for the appearance of IV. Remove junk bicycles abandoned in Pardal racks. Inform the owner manager of the Skyview Apartments on Pardal that a sprinkler is permanently on, running across the sidewalk and creating a curbside lake full of algae. Pardal is our main street. Keep it clean and instill civic pride. If you cannot perform basic services, then why should we pay you? Indeed, why not get rid of this owner's utility tax at the next general election? You've had several years to get this right and simply cannot perform, deliver these basic services, or lose your money.
Thank you for that. Are there any other requests to speak today on items not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we're going to move to our next item. The order is a little bit different today. We're going to be moving to closed session. This is conference with real property negotiators for the properties at 970 and 976 Embarcadero Del Mar. Negotiators are myself, Bob Geist, consultant, Jonathan Abu, general manager, and Ross Trindle, district counsel. Parties are the Community Services District and the County of Santa Barbara. Negotiation is price and terms of payment. We will reconvene from closed session in a number of minutes and readmit you all back into the room. Director Bertrand.
Yes, thank you, President Brandt. I just want to announce that I'll be recusing myself from items 4.1 and 5.2 as they relate to real property negotiations and use agreements for 970 and 976 due to my employment with the County of Santa Barbara. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bertrand. All right, we're now going to enter a closed session. See you all soon.
Let me move everyone into the waiting room.
All right. We are reconvening from open session. Council, is there any reportable action?
Under the closed session agenda, conference with real property negotiators, Government Code Section 54956.8. The board met with agency negotiators as indicated on the closed session agenda item. There was discussion amongst the board and there was direction given to the negotiation team, but there was no final action to report out on price or terms of payment.
Thank you for that, Council. We're now going to move to our discussion action items, and the first is district Halloween programming discussion. And our committee about Halloween programming has had a chance to meet, and I want to hand it over to Ethan and Catherine if you want to introduce this item. I think we have some slides prepared to go over as well.
Let me make it so you can share your screen. There you go.
Oh, actually, I'm having some tech issues with sharing screen. If you could pull up the PDF in your inbox, that would be
PDF.
perfect.
Cool, let me see
Cool.
it.
Thanks. And Catherine will start us off.
Great, give me one sec. There it is.
Awesome, thank you. So the Ad Hoc Committee, who last meeting, we all voted to discuss Halloween planning for 2021. We've made a lot of progress and we wanted to share a brief report on what we have been up to and then asked for guidance moving forward. So some background on Halloween as an Isla Vista tradition. So celebrating Halloween has been a tradition for generations of Isla Vista residents. But historically, as I'm sure we are all aware, there have been some safety issues associated with Halloween. And more recently, we have seen an imbalance between public safety response and the needs of the community. Next slide, please. Okay, so, and I'll also give some personal background too. For Halloween, when talking about the imbalance in the dorms freshman year in our residence halls, we were encouraged not to enter IV at all. And it's almost made to seem like immediately we will be confronted by law enforcement. And so residents, we were all encouraged not to go outside at all, not to celebrate. And so that has been, I was very surprised by that. And that's the culture that we are trying to change. So for IVCSD and Halloween, what have we done in the past? So in the past, IVCSD has co-sponsored the Haunt the Loop trick-or-treating event. We've worked with UCPD to deploy Isla Vista safety stations, which is something that we're really proud of and happy about. We've conducted public information campaigns related to Halloween safety, information like that. And last year we organized a virtual Halloween festival, partnering with Lucidity to deliver entertainment to our residents virtually. But things are looking a little bit different this year with the development of COVID, which is why we found it important to talk about this today.
Yes, and thanks, Catherine. I'll take the next slide. As Catherine mentioned before, we have our ad hoc committee that's been working. This work informally started in August when we met with UC Santa Barbara Dean of Students, Katya Armistead, to speak about potential alternative programming for Halloween and to talk about the needs of the community. As Catherine mentioned, earlier this month, the board received or provided direction for us to continue this work. And our ad hoc committee has brainstormed ideas, met with staff, and initiated outreach with local businesses. Next slide, please. So our concept for a Halloween event, this is really based on many of the needs and the current reality that Catherine described. Rather than just having a Halloween experience and response that's focused on making sure that safety issues are averted, we want to provide something proactive, something that is enjoyable for the community, that provides the community with an alternative to what traditionally Halloween can look like, and also something that really our community can be proud of. We want to start small this year and build from there, but we also recognize that we have to do something because as many of us in Isla Vista have seen, there are a lot of people here, a lot of excited people who want things to do in our community. So our basic concept is we want to attract people to spend time in the downtown business area, reducing crowds in residential areas by providing organized programming. We want to provide residents with an enjoyable experience while the festival ordinance is in place. So those are hours that there cannot be outdoor events with music in residential areas. And to do this, we want to partner with a local business or local businesses to put on pop-up Halloween events. Such an event can include a costume contest, Halloween photo booth, giveaways, trick-or-treat bags, programs for youth and families. And again, this is really to provide that alternative programming within Isla Vista. There are many events that UCSB does every year and will continue to do, and those are all campus-based. But right now we have a deficit for organized programs within Isla Vista. Next slide, please. I'll hand this over to Spencer.
Thanks, Director Bertrand. So I'll go over why the Isla Vista Community Services District is the right positioned entity to be leading this programming. So we are authorized to do so under Government Code 61250, which was the law AB3 that we all know negotiated by the community in order to construct a tailor-made community services district for our Isla Vista. And one of our powers is to acquire, construct, improve, maintain, and operate community facilities, including but not limited to community centers, libraries, theaters, museums, cultural facilities, and child care facilities. To that end, the board has made this a priority in our budget by funding a community programs budget where we have about $25,000, and we also have a separate item for community festivals. I think that this is one of the things that we have consistently heard from our community over these years is how tragic it is that the strategy for addressing big events like Halloween and Deltopia has been so focused on the stick without providing the carrot, without providing something fun for people to do, so that the energy that young people, youth, and families in our community have around these special events, these special holidays, can be channeled into something good. And so we really see this as a top priority for the district and for the people who live here.
That's right. And before I describe the next steps that we may want to consider tonight, I'll go into a little bit more detail about our latest progress here. So when we started meeting, we originally thought, oh, maybe we could do like an open streets event where we close off part of, say, Part All and have an event where people come by, perhaps enjoy food in a safe area, entertainment, different attractions. But given the short timeline that we have, that's not really feasible for this year. However, from there, we thought about, well, what if we go and partner with local businesses to turn private spaces into pop-up public spaces? We went around the loop and looked at different locations that could accommodate people, that feel safe, and that would be an attraction and hopefully bring people to the downtown business area and have folks who are already walking around stay around for a while. So with that, one of the businesses that we identified as having a good location was the Isla Vista Food Co-op. And they've done programs like this before where they've had public events in their outdoor space, on their patio, in their parking lot. And we initiated contact with the board president of the Isla Vista Food Co-op just to gauge interest, if they would be interested in partnering with us to put on this type of alternative event, which essentially what the partnership would be them allowing us to use their space for a public event, their outdoor space. And they were really interested, which was no surprise, as we know they do a lot in this community. But that was a really positive step. As mentioned in a previous slide, we would potentially be interested in partnering with other businesses too that want to host some type of public event on the night of Halloween or on the Saturday night before. But right now we've really had strong contact with one business as well as the university. So that's where we're at this point. And for tonight, we're recommending that we ask staff to work on this some more, develop an event budget and potential facility use agreement for future consideration of approval by this board. And then apart from that, create content for a public outreach campaign related to Halloween. This is something we've done in the past. Safety information on local resources, and then hopefully information on this alternative programming as well. So that's our update for tonight. We'll open it up for questions, ideas, and comments.
All right, well, thank you, Catherine and Ethan, for that presentation. Do any board members have questions that they'd like to ask, clarifying questions? Director Deschler.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, so if I understand, because being short on time and Halloween being like 3.5 weeks away or something like that, the idea is to look for relationships with different businesses to use their private space to have pop-ups. And the first business identified is Ivy Food Co-op. And you anticipate that there might be other businesses that you would do something as well with them? Yeah. Okay. And then I just wanted to ask.
That's the hope.
That's the hope. And then what is the capacity, the physical capacity for people at the Ivy Food Club? I've only been in the store, so I have no sense of like space, how much space that would could accommodate people wise.
Great question. So I'm not sure what the specific capacity is for their patio and parking lot area. It is a place where they've had, and I'm sorry, you all are frozen on my screen. Am I frozen?
Yes, but you're good frozen. You're not weird frozen.
But okay, you can hear me.
Oh yeah, no, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I don't know the specific capacity for the outdoor space there, but they have had plenty of events ranging from open mic nights to other types of entertainment. I think recognizing that they are not a huge space is why we would be interested in having other public spaces for that night too. But that was the first one that we were able to get someone to say, yes, we'd be interested. So we just wanted to bring this to you right away.
Thank you.
And I'm going to log out and back in so that I'm unfrozen.
Oh, I was going to say you're not frozen anymore.
Yeah.
And again, I think I saw a hand from Director Freeman.
Oh, yes. So, what was it? It was today, to verify, what are you actually, if anything, asking for out of the board? I feel like the answer was not much.
So I think, Jonathan, if you want to bring up that last slide again, I think there's a recommendation on there to direct staff to develop a budget and a facility use agreement and create an outreach content for an outreach campaign related to Halloween.
There we go. I interestingly, for note about the meeting, I had actually switched away from the slides and was staring at people, switched back to the slides. So this would be, we were directing staff to come back with a budget, and then we would be, for consideration or approval of the future meeting, we would be approving such budget.
That's right.
Do you have any order of magnitude out of curiosity that you're thinking that this budget is going to be looking at, or?
At this time, we do not have that. I think we want to look at what we spent on Halloween last year and what we have budgeted in our current fiscal year budget. But I mean, right now, this is a pretty small scale concept. It'll depend on how we build. But like I mentioned with the last answer I gave, like while this is preliminary, we wanted to come to you right away with just the one thing that does seem like we can get off the ground at this point. So if it remains just this smaller scale event, we'll probably be spending a lot less than we did last year. But if staff in investigating this in the next week or two finds other potential things that we should be doing, they can report back to us.
I'll also just add to that. I think we're very mindful that last year when we did the full-on production of the virtual event during Lucidity, we were sort of making a decision as a board under the understanding that because of COVID-19 and social distancing, there wouldn't be a whole lot of other programming happening. And we're very mindful that that situation is different this year. So that's going to help factor in with the scale of the budget.
Thank you for those answers. I also will note that it's this comes back in 2 weeks. That's getting, there's only 2 weeks really then until, 2.5 weeks or whatever, until Halloween actually happens. And so it starts to get close on the ability to actually execute anything that was that large anyway. So yeah. One quick question, unrelated in some sense. Can you hear me at this volume of speaking?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Great. I'm actually speaking quietly, so.
Director Deschler, I see you have a question.
Do we know if the Isla Vista Recreation and Parks District is going to do anything in their parks during this time? Just I think we had talked about movies. I know they are doing movies, but I don't know if anybody had heard anything about that.
Director Bertrand.
Yes, so I attended their last board meeting where they gave an update from their recreation committee. And from what I understand, they will be doing an event in a park earlier in the week. They're planning to do an event at Estero Park. And that event will be open for all community members, but especially tailored for youth and families. That was the main event that they reported out for Halloween. If I remember correctly, it was on the Thursday night.
And then I have another question on the content for the public outreach campaign. Is that similar to what's been done in the past? Something probably in partnership with AS, with the university, just kind of tips and resources. Is that what that is?
That's right. And last year it was heavily focused on COVID safety. So, I mean, that'll still be relevant for this year, but a little bit different. But yes, that coordinated campaign.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if there are no other questions for the board, I think it's a good time to open up public comment. Any member of the public that would like to speak on this item may do so by hitting the raise hand button in Zoom, or you can put something in the chat to indicate that you'd like to speak. All right, I'm not seeing any requests for public comment, so we'll bring it back to the board. Director Deschler again.
I know, I'm so sorry. Lord, people, you got to talk tonight. Otherwise, I will fill up the space. What I did want to say is I would really, it would be so great next year if to think about Halloween earlier. And this is not at all criticism at all. No. It's just that I think that given the need to really plan something, it just should happen a lot sooner. And it would be great to think about this earlier in the summer or, July, August, and start planning then. Because this is a big burden on staff, and I don't know if our staff has the time to do this type of work in, the next 3 weeks. So that's all. I would just say that let's put it on the agenda earlier next year.
Agreed. We did bring it up in July, and at that time we didn't have the support from everyone, but agree, we all need to work on this earlier. Absolutely. And one thing I'll mention too, I do think that we'll, if possible, perhaps need to have a special meeting on this to approve. And hopefully that can be a meeting where we have our full recommendations available ahead, I's dotted, T's crossed for execution of staff's recommendations. I'm thinking based on our timeline that we may need to do that.
All right, any other comments from board members? Well, if not, then I think we're ready to entertain a motion. Would anyone like to make the motion?
Yes, Jonathan, sorry, could you pull, or wait, I have it on my screen, never mind. I'll move to direct staff to develop an event budget and facility use agreement as appropriate for future consideration of approval by the board, and develop a public outreach campaign related to Halloween.
Motion made by Bertrand. Is there a second? I see a hand from Director Topliff. Second. Okay. Any other comments from the board? All right, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Great. Director Brandt,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yeah.
Bertrand,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Dashler,
Yes.
Topliff.
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Looking forward to seeing you all back here 2 weeks from now for approval. All right,
Yeah,
next.
and I'd like to just say thanks to everyone. I know we just cut to the chase and we're in the weeds a little bit, but this is exciting for Isla Vista, and this is going to be fun, positive, and look forward to working on this some more. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Director Bertrand. We're going to move now to 5.2, the Operations and Use Agreement for 976 Embarcadero Del Mar, the Isla Vista Community Center.
Great, thank you. Let me get my screen shared on here. And let me zoom in because I realize it's hard to see. This is the Operations and Use Agreement for the Isla Vista Community Center. We are recommending this for approval today. It is a very similar agreement to one we've already signed in 2019-20 fiscal year that we never really fully got to implement because of COVID-19 beginning shortly after. And this agreement, if approved, would give our district the exclusive ability to program and manage the Isla Vista Community Center as a public facility, community facility. And it's for 1 year. And it does have the changes to note, for example, from the last go around is one very important, which is the shift of the responsibility for the floor from the district to the county. So we really wanted to note that. And this agreement, again, is good. And it has, the reasons it's good is because we've negotiated many points in the past that remained in here, such as the maintenance responsibilities lying primarily with the county, the indemnity clauses, and the, there's no ban on alcohol use in the building, different points that were really important to us in when we last passed this. We've maintained those. So it's still a good agreement, and it gives us the ability to start putting the community center into use on an interim basis for 1 year while we continue our other negotiations.
Thank you for sharing that, Jonathan. I'm very happy that we're considering this agreement because I think it represents a good step forward in our relationship with the county and our goal of making these county facilities into lively, culturally full spaces where programming that is made by and for the community can be created and consumed. And I'm really excited for what we're going to be able to do over this year. I'm also sensitive to the things that we heard back in last May, when we got back the building assessments to try and assess the conditions of the properties. And we know that this is not the it's not the last time that we'll be talking about these buildings. There are still many things that improvements that we need to work out with the county in order for us to make these spaces into their fullest potential. But I'm really happy with where we've been able to get with this, and I think it's time that we enter into this agreement on this temporary basis to begin the programming that we've spoken about. Any comments or questions from board members? Director Deschler.
I wanted to ask a couple questions. I wanted to ask, in the absence of having a staff person doing this, right, because we don't have that position filled, the IVCSD, I just wanted to ask whose responsibility this will be, who's going to be taking over the programming and the scheduling. And so that's one question. And I also wondered if you all had, if we know what's being offered there now, what will continue. So I had to go through and work with the county last week on a temporary use agreement, I think it was. And for a faculty member to use the space, it was quite an arduous process. Jonathan was super helpful. Is that the kind of thing that the IVCSD will now be doing, negotiating and doing all the plans for people who want to do programming there?
Yeah, so great questions. Well, the way I see it is October is going to be a slow start. We're going to get started with reservations, but it's not going to, I'm going to have to handle them. It's not going to be at an overwhelming level, and we're going to be, doing a little bit at a time just to ease back into this as we get the ability to do more with the new staff. And the other, what's going on there right now, we need to figure this out more. And also in terms of the agreement, I'll answer the agreement first. Yeah, we actually in the past did not have an agreement for those who reserved any of our spaces. And Ross and I have now talked, now we're moving into the new world. We want that. So we will come up with something simple though. And we don't want it to be arduous for student organizations or community groups who don't have, lawyers themselves and such to make a reservation, but we'll just have something that's an agreement that formalizes their use of the space, make sure that they sign on that they're going to respect the space and leave it, how they left it, things like that. Because in the past, we were very, very loose. And I liked how loose we were. We were maybe the most liberal reservation space. And I think it was good, but I think it's better now to have us have a little bit, more formal expectations and roles between users and us. So we're going to be doing that. And so that's why it's going to be a rollout of reservations, and it'll ramp up as we get the new person hired. And yeah, in terms of what's going on now, there, like Kirsten said, there was the new Black student reception on Friday, and there was the electric bike pop-up a couple weeks ago, and there's been a church that's been meeting there in the evenings on Fridays. And that's something I need to figure out, because we never had procedures for private organizations to use the space. It's mainly been public organizations like, student groups, which are part of a public university, or other government agencies, or UCSB itself, when we did the Jazz House. So we never had a situation yet where we had to rent to a private group. So that's something that I need to figure out. The county was charging them, for example, and they felt like they had to for certain reasons. And so I need to figure out, do we need to charge them? Can we have them one free and then they started getting charged? It's something we need to figure out right now. But that's the only group that's been wanting to continue. There's a couple more who've sent in requests for the community room. So requests are starting to come in, but we'll just, get going as fast as we're able to get going. I won't go faster than we can.
Just to follow up on that makes sense. I guess, I think you answered my question also about there isn't any like parameters or mission statement that kind of guides who is reserved to. So there's no like system in place where you say yes or nay, yay or nay. And also I do think that's an interesting question about, private being charged. I mean, there definitely are costs. I'm sure that's a legal question. There are public costs associated with this public building. And so there might be something using tax dollars for a private entity. There might be something that they're required to charge. But anyways, that's what I just wondered, if there was some kind of guidance to give you so that when people are asking it, you can, if you have two conflicting groups, how do you make that decision? But perhaps that'll be something that will be determined when you have that new position filled. And
I guess also that'll one first be an interview question for the job. How would they do that? How they figure that out? And we do have some guidance. And one thing I didn't mention that I plan to do, but I'll make it public now to, any reservations that come in, because we have had some from public agencies too, to reserve our community room, for example. But any reservations that come in, I'm going to really tell them, you're good through fall. Like I'm not going to make any commitments for either space beyond December, because that's, by then we'll have our new person join and they can make a strategy. But we have some, some things that do guide like what we should prioritize it for. And so if there are like two different things, the only, hiccup is like once you make a commitment and you find out the day after that there's something else that's even better that could be there, it's hard to take back a reservation. It's not probably a good business practice, but yeah. So we are going to figure it out. But we have a lot that we go off of from our past experience, and we don't have the direct staff, but I was there with them the whole time, and we have all the things they worked on and everything we have from before to go off of.
Thank you, Director Deschler. Any other questions from board members? All right, we'll not seeing anything else. We'll open up public comment. Anyone who'd like to comment on this item can hit the raise hand button in the chat, or you can also just put something in the chat saying that you would like to make a public comment, and we will call on you. All right, not seeing any, so we'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. If there are any final thoughts. Seeing none. I see one from Director Deschler. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just didn't. Okay, I was just going to say thank you for all your hard work, Spencer and Jonathan, getting to this point to be able to sign this agreement and be able to offer this really important service to the community. I think it's just a great step in the right direction. And I know you've persevered through some really difficult, challenging times with regards to this process and program. And it's exciting to see that's going to be open for the public and to be people to be able to do the things that they want to do in a shared space. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations to the entire community. This has been a process that has lasted for, I believe, 3 decades now, 3-decade-long dream of having a community center. I'm sure the dream was well alive before that even started. So we're very fortunate to be able to be a part of moving this ball forward. And this is just the first step. Even with this agreement, there's going to be bumps in the road. Not everything is going to be perfect, because we know, especially in Isla Vista, we don't get to work with a perfect blank canvas. We get to work with some used toys sometimes, but that's okay, because we'll make do, and more than make do, we'll figure out a way how to make things great. All right, are we ready for a motion to adopt this agreement?
I'll move to adopt this agreement.
Made by Director Topliff. Is there a second?
I will second.
All right. Motion and a second. Any other comments from the public or the board? All right, let's go to a roll call vote.
Director Brandt,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Keshler,
Yes.
Topliff.
Yes.
Right. Motion passes 6-0. Can't wait to get inside that building. I'm sure everyone else feels the same way. Okay, we're going to move to item 5.3. This is we're going to want to bring Ethan back in, I believe.
I just texted him. He is not in the waiting room.
So we're going to move to item 5.3. This is the facility use agreement with St. Michael's Church for the Compost Site.
Okay, let me admit Ethan. Give him a second to get audio. And let me zoom in, right? Hard to see. We don't need to go through the whole.
There you go.
So I do want to apologize that this wasn't attached. I thought I had attached it. It was like done last week, but I guess I must have uploaded it to the wrong folder. So I apologize for that. But this is our facility use agreement with the St. Michael's Church to utilize their space to operate community facilities as compost piles as community facilities. We have operated St. Mike's in the past, so it's not a huge change because we've already been working there, but we are expanding our operations there a bit through this agreement because we built a second compost pile there for $700, and we have acquired a shed, or they bought a shed to place there to support our operations. That will be able to store our bike and our buckets and all our supplies for the program. So, and we've got also, plans and ideas to build a third compost pile there, which if we wanted to do, we'd probably need to get health department permit for, but that's still in our heads. We just got done building the second one. And that second one was making up for the loss of the Methodist compost pile, which is going to be offline through March, I think. So March or April next year. So we had to make up that capacity that we had lost by building that second one there. But yeah, the price of this contract is $1 that we would pay to St. Mike's. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I want to just really give a strong shout out to Carly Mardo, our staff, and the Compost Collective, who cultivated this relationship, which we already had, but we took it to the next level here when seeing the the needs that the St. Mike's had and the needs the Compost Collective had, and we had a perfect match made here. And so yeah, I'm excited to recommend this, and we get it kind of gives us a little HQ of sorts with 2 to 3 piles and a shed. And the church, who's very, very committed to the mission of composting for many years already, and was one of the original sites of the Compost Collective. So it's good to grow that site that we've already been at for a while, before the CSD was even involved. Yeah, that's it on this one. I'm not sure I can put in anything else here to explain. This is like what we store there, all the stuff we own and use right now, and we have some plans. Exhibits are the fun section. We have some plans for future things, a third compost pile, more buckets. So when we double our capacity of collection, and I don't know if it's explained here, but there's going to be a location for people who do drop off to weigh their compost and be a part of it that way. So there'll be a stand where you can weigh your own bucket whenever you come. So yeah, the only issue we're figuring out is, our bike needs to be stored with good shelter, and we're charging the battery as much as we can keep it interior. So that's why the shed is going to be outdoor storage shed. Going to help with that. So yeah. And they're going to take care of like the water utilities. You know, we're using the hose to clean the buckets, and they're taking care of that. Yeah, St. Michael's is very committed to making composting happen in Isla Vista, and yeah, we are too.
Excellent.
And I do want to mention, since Lisa is here from the co-op, we do work with the food co-op too to do some of our drop-offs as well, and we appreciate being able to use sometimes your location when we need to.
Thank you for that presentation, Jonathan. Do any board members have questions on the agreement? All right, well, not seeing any hands, I'll also ask if there are any members of the public that would like to comment on the agreement. All right, I'm not seeing any requests to speak from members of the public. I'll give a couple of comments, which is I've been fortunate enough to, over this past year, be neighbors with St. Michael's Church. And in my time, I got to look right out my window at the compost pile. I saw many members of the community coming and going and dropping off compost. I think it's incredible that they've been able to establish themselves as a facility that people know about, and that people know is committed to furthering the composting in Isla Vista. And I think that this agreement is such an incredible example of partnership between government and the faith community to achieve common goals of sustainability. And I also really just want to say a big thank you to Carly, our Compost Collective coordinator, for all the work that she's done to put this agreement together and to work out these details with St. Michael's. I think that this partnership is really, it's really something. It's incredible to see the program being able to grow and move into a more permanent sort of space. So I'm very ecstatic to support this, and very thankful to Jonathan and Ross as well for putting the agreement together. Any other comments or questions from board members? Director Deschler.
I'm not going to say it as eloquent as you did, Spencer, but I completely 100% agree. I just think it's such a fabulous thing to see two entities come together with a mutual goal, create something really spectacular for the community, and for $1 a year. And there's just, I just think that's just a great thing. And so really kudos to all who made this happen.
Thank you for that, Director Deschler. Any other comments from board members? Seeing none, I think we're ready for a motion. Would anyone like to make it? Director Flaherty.
I would like to motion to approve the facility use agreement for the St. Michael's Church composting site.
We have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Director Topliff. Any last discussion? All right, let's move to a roll call vote.
Director Brandt,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Bertrand. Oh, he's not. Wait, is Ethan back?
I think he just fell off the meeting.
No, fell off. Aguilar,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Deschler,
Yes.
Topliff.
Yes.
Ethan just joined back. Let's get his vote. Hey, Ethan, we just voted. I just called your name on the roll for the community, for the facility use agreement.
Thank you. I vote aye.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Motion passes unanimously. And bigger thanks to St. Michael's Church and our staff again, just for putting this together. What a great partnership. All right, we're going to move to item 5.4, the Isla Vista Community Center Director job description.
Okay, let me get my screen shared. Okay, well, I'm always one, I'm going to admit I was I made a mistake in how we structured the last position, the assistant general manager for community programs. After a lot of consideration and the process we went through and the changing situation at the CSD with our assistant general manager and what we're doing with consulting services now, it really made sense to not move forward with the assistant general manager for community programs role, because it would not have been successful as structured and as how we were moving forward with it. So after a lot of thought, I came to the conclusion that what would be most beneficial for the IVCSD is a more narrow position instead of one that's more broad. That we could build to the more broad position in the future, which is what the board had recommended. Some board members were thinking would be better, and I think I support that notion. So I take the blame for going in that other direction, and it didn't end up working out. But I think this, the original direction from 2 years ago and what we were already talking about in July, I think is the right way to go. And so let me explain some differences in this position. In the about section, we removed a lot of the mention in terms of helping with the other operations of the CSD beyond the community center. That's the main change here, where the position was pretty wide in scope. We're going to deal with the gardens, or composting collective, the survivor resource center, the community center, which made sense. It's not something that doesn't make sense, but by shrinking the role, we can have it, tailored towards a staff person who's singularly focused on making this major goal of ours successful. So that's the major change there. And then the other changes are mainly in the job description, which it's all the same. It's all the same stuff. The only difference is that 3 or 4 of these points have been changed to assist the GM rather than to lead that to happen. So there are some things that they will be responsible for, like developing programs, scheduling programs. The strategic plan is supposed to be assist the GM, I think, but they're gonna do the data collection, the grant writing, any interns putting on things, but then I'm gonna have them, they can assist me with facility improvements. That's very clear. It's not part of this job. It wasn't part of the other one either. Assist me with developing the policies and procedures. I will take on staffing the community advisory board, which again is just like such a niche skill to do, and I don't want to put it on a new staff person to staff a board. And then tracking program costs, like the financial aspect of it, I'll keep on my end. And obviously I won't, they'll help me do that. And they'll be getting the receipts and working with me on them. But so yeah, those are the main changes. I made some tweaks in here to reflect that, but nothing major that I can note. The timeline is September 30, we opened this week. And then we hire by sometime in December 6th, I put, but we're flexible with that. So another month, and I think things were gonna do the same. We had shared the job in a lot of different with a lot of different community organizations, like community-based organizations in Santa Barbara. And in the Central Coast, we had shared it with them. So we will definitely do that again, share it to the various job boards that we usually use, like CSDA and government jobs. And I will find one that's specific to community centers again. And yeah, so we're gonna do some similar things there with promotion. And then the last thing is the salary, which I think the board had said last time that we wanted it to be in we had put, I think, 75 to 85,000, which was more of the assistant general manager range. And since it's a director role now, I took it down 5,000 each, 70 to 80,000, which is actually still out of line with what we had originally set as our salary ranges, but the board had said, oh no, we think that this would be better at the time. So I stuck with that. And we always want to reevaluate our salary ranges. It's never something that should be static because things are constantly changing. So if we felt, when the board did set that differently in July, I went along with that, and we can have that discussion again on our salary ranges. We can make it a more regular thing on how we assess those. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Would love to hear any questions or comments on this.
Thanks for the presentation, Jonathan. Any questions from the board? Director Dashler.
Is this a full-time position? I looked at it, I didn't see if it said it was a full-time position.
It is a full-time position.
Okay.
It should say that. I will make sure it's very clearly in here that it's full-time. And I put in, it's not in there. I will make sure I put it in. I went into our policy manual and we have like this nice blurb. Oh no, I did put it in. We have a nice blurb in there about our employee conduct that I added into this, which is all employees of the IVCSD are public servants of Isla Vista and represent a investment in good governance. As such, employees shall strive to be efficient in their service and conduct themselves professionally and courteously in dealing with the public and fellow employees. I just think that's important to put in now, just to be clear about what kind of employer we are and what we expect out of our employees. That's in our policy manual, by just now putting it in the front instead of after. But I will make it really clear it's a full-time position.
Any other questions from board members?
My hand's up, by the way. I don't know if you can see me.
Oh, sorry, Jay. I missed you. Go ahead.
So I'm really happy to see all the changes that were made. I do have one question, just to another. Often I ask questions I feel like I should know the answer to. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The salary for the position that we hired for the communications director, what was that salary?
Are you asking what the range was or what the
range?
salary
Yeah.
actually is?
The range when we had the
yeah. Well, the range was 65 to 75. And then, then we, the board, and then we had put the AGM range at 70 to 80, I believe.
So I like having this position not be an AGM and be more restricted and to have the commensurately somewhat smaller salary. The only thing I'm wondering is whether or not we should have the same range for this as that other position, but I'm okay either way personally.
Yeah, well, that's one of the adjustments I think we'll be making. Like, I think we can't do it all at the same time, but we had set the ranges. Then we, soon after felt that maybe we should even change them, which is totally okay to do because that's what hiring is a changing environment. And then now that we've made this change, I think we can just go back and reassess this and say, here's the new ranges for these different levels in the organization. Because we can just say director is now this range because we felt that important. So
I guess the implicit question there is whether we feel that this position deserves more money than the other position, which maybe it does. I'm okay either way. Personally, I'm not having a difficult time. I honestly, even in my company and things like that, I find salaries somewhat difficult to think about sometimes, but I think it's a worthwhile question to ask.
I know it is hard. And I actually even read an article today that ranges don't make sense. And usually you'd be hiring at the top of the range anyway. So why don't you just put the top of the range? And it was an interesting article. I don't know if it made me change my mind yet to get rid of the range, but it's a consideration. But, we get different applicants and different people of different, there's promising candidates or, stellar candidates who over exceed our requirements. And there's, people you need to train more. So.
Well, I just want to add something. I just want to say thank you to Jonathan because I know, over the last number of months when we've been sort of trying to evaluate how we proceed with our, assisting you with operations and administrative roles during this difficult time for our staff member and for the district as a whole. I appreciate that you've been able to be nimble and that we've been able to figure out a role that best suits what we're looking for and not try to overextend ourselves a little bit too much and really craft something that focuses on the things that matter to us. So, and it's a hard thing to be able to say, no, I don't think that I was right. I think we got to try over again. I think we got to make these modifications, but I mean, it's very, it's very admirable that you're able to do that. I'm glad that we have that relationship as with the board and with you to be able to do that. And I think that what you've came up with here is really stellar. I think that the salary range makes sense for this position, being much more focused and less administrative, less operational, less executive than the assistant GM role would be. So I think that it's a good document, and I'm personally, I think I'm ready to support it as is.
Yeah, I think that's really
it's a higher range than the other position, than the community programs outreach. And
it is a higher range. It is, and I think that's just because I think this is what we need to do now for this, and we will come back to adjust the range for the other one, and our other, our AGM range, which will now, can't have it the same as this. So we'll readjust the ranges this fall. But I think we get started with this. This is like the precedent we set on. We're moving in this direction.
And just to clarify, the range that I was talking about was the Assistant General Manager of Community Programs range.
Yeah, right. Which you all had set to 75 to 85. When I had proposed it as 70 to 80 actually as well, and then the board felt like we actually should bump it up to get the right candidate for AGM. But then I just reduced the 5 and the 5 back to 70, 80. And then we maybe think that the director roles should be the 70 to 80 range.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll open up public comment. Are there any comments from members of the public on this item? All right, seeing none, I'll close it. Any final thoughts from directors, or are we ready for a motion? Not seeing anything. Anyone want to move approval of this?
I'll move approval. I'll move for approval for the 5.4 Vista Community Center Director job description to be approved by the board.
I'll second.
Made by Deschler, seconded by Topliff. Any further discussion from the board? All right, seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote.
Director Brandt?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Bertrand?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
Deschler?
Yes.
Topliff?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thanks, everyone. We're going to move to Resolution 21-7, the implementation of AB 361.
Great. I'm going to pull this up. Ross, do you want to do the presentation on this one?
Yes.
Thank you. Here we go.
So off and on throughout the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, one of my duties has been to inform the board and the public as to what in the world's going on with the state government and measures to continue to have remote participation and observation of public agencies since Governor Newsom initially issued Executive Order N-25-20, which relaxed the normal fairly onerous requirements for teleconferencing under the Brown Act. Normally, you meet in person, you post an agenda within 72 hours for regular meetings or 24 hours for special meetings, and other certain provisions of the Brown Act apply. In cases where not all members of the board can participate in person within the boundaries of the jurisdiction for the agency, there are teleconferencing rules that are available, but they involve being in a publicly accessible place. There are limits on the number of board members or city council members who can be outside the jurisdiction. And there are accessibility and notice requirements for the places where the teleconferencing is going to take place. Obviously, with a virus like COVID-19, having people, members of the public, have access to directors' homes is not safe for health reasons. So the governor issued N25-20 to relax that, clarified it later with certain provisions in N29-20. And basically for the past 18 months, that's how we've been operating. Thankfully, the California State Legislature recognized that at some point the pandemic is going to end, and at some point agencies are going to be returning back to in-person meetings. But just because COVID-19 happened didn't mean necessarily that there were not going to be other circumstances under which remote meetings were going to take place. Further, they recognized that after 18 months, there were a lot of technology platforms that were available to allow people, both elected and appointed officials, but also members of the public, to observe and participate in local government in a meaningful way, consistent with the intent of the Brown Act and the open meeting laws generally, that were not necessarily in existence at the time that the teleconference provisions of the Brown Act were originally written. And as a byproduct of that understanding and looking forward to what happens when COVID wanes and what happens to when the next type of local emergency occurs, the legislature sought about writing a couple of different bills and ultimately passed in AB 361 and AB 339. 339 is not the subject for tonight, but essentially it provided for incorporated into certain provisions of 361, remote participation and observation, and that was made a requirement for agencies that are 250,000 people or larger. Obviously doesn't apply to Isla Vista CSD. So AB 361 is the mechanism by which, during declared states of emergency, local agencies can essentially go back to the types of online solutions that they have been using throughout COVID-19, but on a moving forward basis. So obviously people were very excited with the state's reopening plan in June. There was a lot of excitement going into July. The Delta variant hit, and then public agencies have been kind of going back and forth on having completely remote meetings, having completely in-person meetings with masks and social distancing, or having hybrid meetings. And then come Executive Order N-8-21, the governor essentially set an expiration for those remote meeting authorizations by virtue of the prior executive orders. That was going to end on September 30th, 2021. AB 361 is passed by the legislature at the end of the legislative season, and the governor signs it, and it allows for that transition back. So what it does is it provides another option for remote meetings that does not require compliance with the teleconferencing rules under the Brown Act as written, or vanilla Brown Act. But in order to invoke them, which is to say, in order to avoid having to comply with the more onerous and intrusive provisions of the vanilla Brown Act, there are certain things that local agencies have to do and certain findings that need to be made. So come September 30th, the old executive orders expire, the normal vanilla Brown Act comes back into full force and effect, as well as the teleconferencing rules. But if a declared state of emergency, the state level continues, And health guidance from health agencies provides for mitigation measures that include social distancing and other health measures, such that a local agency finds that it's just not safe to have in-person meetings, then these types of remote meetings that we've been doing for the past 18 months can be used again on a temporary basis. So another way to look at it is we don't have to wait for the governor to issue an executive order anymore. A declaration of a state of emergency, as well as local health guidance providing for certain mitigation measures, is enough to allow local agencies to then pick up the ball and move forward as they see fit, not necessarily as the governor's office or some other remote state agency may deem fit. So the transition requires a determination as to whether certain conditions exist, and then the adoption of a resolution that essentially tells the public, we are meeting under these different set of rules. Here they are, and it lasts for 30 days. It's one of the requirements of AB 361 is that the initial transition back to or continuing with remote meetings is for an initial 30-day period. Thereafter, the board can meet and adopt a second resolution to extend the use of those remote procedures. If the time elapses, then the initial findings under the initial transition resolution have to be readopted. And essentially, it states to the public, here are the conditions that are existing out there. This is why we think remote meetings should be followed. And here's the law that says that we can do this. So before the board for consideration, if it deems appropriate, it's not a requirement. This is an option for continuing to use remote meetings in the future for a 30-day period starting on October 1st, which is the first day after the governor's executive orders expire on September 30th, to allow for the continuation of remote meetings as they have been presented, and with a finding and an affirmation that the statutory and constitutional rights of the public to meaningfully participate and observe their local government officials carrying out government functions on their behalf will continue for 30 days. I say it's optional. The board does not have to adopt this, but a number of public agencies are continuing with remote meetings. Others are moving towards a hybrid model whereby the board meets in person and the public attends remotely if a robust technology platform exists like Zoom or some other platform. And others are moving completely to in-person, and so they're not looking at considering or adopting this initial resolution. So Jonathan, you can scroll down to the findings. I think that's important to illustrate for the board that the conditions that need to exist are, there has to be a proclaimed state of emergency by the governor under the Emergency Services Act. And that has to extend to the jurisdiction of the public agency, so IVCSD. And that in addition to that, there either has to be a public health guidance at the state or level that includes the jurisdiction, the district, providing either requiring or recommending mitigation measures like social distancing and masks, or the public agency, the district, has to make findings that having in-person meetings is not conducive to protecting health or safety. So in this case, those conditions are met. Those are required under AB 361 and the changes to the Brown Act. So specifically, the governor's state of emergency, since announced on March 4th, is still in effect. The county health department has its newest health order is 2021-10.4, which mandates continued use of face masks while indoors, regardless of vaccination status, due to the evidence of increasing transmission of COVID-19 within the county and worldwide, and particularly due to the Delta variant. And that health order also incorporates a variety of other local, state, and federal declarations, proclamations, guidance, and recommendations, including social distancing, especially while indoors, and especially while indoors for extended periods of time, which, as we all know, local government meetings can sometimes fit that last category. So all of the conditions that need to be present are present. Therefore, the board, if it so chooses, can elect to continue to have remote meetings as it has been doing for the duration in the month of October. Since it's only 30 days, if the board does adopt this and continues to meet by remote means, there will be another declaration. There will be another resolution, excuse me, that includes information and findings that these conditions still exist. The declaration of public emergency and local mandate for mask and social distancing, or some other reasons articulated by the district that justifies continuing with the remote measures for another 30 days. One of the questions that came up in putting this together, both from Jonathan and Spencer, but also from other agencies that my firm represents, is, as a corollary of, is this mandatory? Is, can you adopt this, wait and see what is the numbers are looking like between now and the time of the next meeting, and then choose at that point to not have remote meetings? And the answer is yes. The way that the law is written is to provide a measure of flexibility for the public agencies. So either one, you can adopt this early in September, and if it ends up being that the numbers are holding up and are positive, and a public meeting is deemed to be safe, then the board can post on the agenda itself, that is posted 72 hours before the meeting, that it will be an in-person meeting, for example, for directors, and that members of the public can join via Zoom, and here is all the information. Or that it's going to be happening all in person, and the public is welcome to participate, but there will be a mask and social distancing requirement, or there will be a mask requirement. Whatever kind of mix and match of those different conditions might be, the key is to provide guidance and clarity to the public so they know what to expect and they know how to come and participate and observe their local government officials. So you can pass it now, decide not to use it, or decide to use it one way or a different way, or to use it full tilt. You can decide not to pass it tonight. You can decide to wait completely and simply go forward and want to have the option to make the decision, or to have the choice available at the first meeting in October. You can do that. One of the conditions, or one of the reasons by which you can meet remotely, is to determine whether you want to meet remotely. So you can't at that point consider this initiating resolution at the first meeting in October. So the legislature did, I think, a good job in incorporating modern ways for both board members, local government elected and appointed officials, and members of the public to meaningfully engage in this weird new world that we have been living in, but also to provide some type of flexibility for future declarations, future public health emergencies, future natural disasters. So that is an overview of AB 361. This is an overview of what this resolution is, and also some of the other aspects of the law that may come into play, and hopefully answers a couple of questions preemptively. But I'm happy to answer any other questions the board may have.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Ross. I think you put it really well. Are there any questions from directors?
I have no questions yet, but I have opinions.
Harry, is that a question?
Me?
Yes.
No, I just was going to thank you for the presentation and acknowledge what a very complex bureaucracy we operate in. And I appreciate all the efforts to keep us this side of the law. Thank you.
My pleasure. You're welcome.
Okay, actually, I guess I do have a question. It's almost feels unfortunate that I have to ask this question. Can I ask it now?
Yes, go ahead.
If we declare this and then we do a remote meeting and then somebody else, some member of the public decides this virus wasn't that big of a deal. Really, the numbers have gone down. You shouldn't have declared that. You're just doing this in order to get around some Brown Act requirement. Can they ding us on the idea that we claimed there was, which for what it's worth, I think there is, that we claimed there was some health issue and that, like, well, these other entities were meeting in person and like how does that balance of work?
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like I don't even know if I want to have Ross answer that because I think you're asking a policy and political question more than you're asking a legal question.
I can answer to this extent, Director Freeman. And I'm not going to tell you which way to vote. That's the policy question that President Brandt was referencing.
I have I'm really solid on what I want to do policy-wise. I'm curious, just like legally, if we go ahead with this, and then at the next meeting we vote on something, can a member of the public challenge our meeting under this, or are we indemnified the way that the law works, that we've been given the benefit of the doubt in our determination of fact?
Yes, and I absolutely can answer that and give you the legal analysis for that. So the first part of your question, the way that AB 361 is written and implemented into 54953 subsection E, which is the open meeting provisions of the Brown Act, it calls for one thing for sure, which is a declaration of a statewide emergency by the governor under the Emergency Services Act. That exists. That's cited in the resolution. It's cited in the recitals, and you can go to the governor's website and find it. Condition one has been met. Then you need one of two, either or, of the following: a local health order implementing, either requiring or recommending health mitigation measures that include social distancing. That is also cited in the resolution. The analysis at that point would stop. So any legal challenge that we would have to meet, we would simply say, Your Honor, the first requirement under the law has been met because of the governor's statewide declaration of emergency under the Emergency Services Act. The second of two or three has been met because of a local health order, and here it is. Or in the absence of a local health order is where the district is in a position of making certain findings. That is the potentially more problematic of the two, because there needs to be, and the resolution does this, but in the absence of local health orders, if there is not specific technical basis for finding that emergency conditions exist and that meeting in person is a bad idea, that is, of the three circumstances, the most potentially problematic, the one most likely to be subject to a challenge. Because those first two conditions exist here, the viability of any legal challenge is suspect. It would be extremely difficult for any member of the public to say you did not comply with the requirements of AB 361. Second part of your question is even if they objected, the time it would take for them to get into court is anywhere from a week to 30 days, by which time the next parts of AB 361 will have already kicked in. So there is essentially a safety valve, or a safe harbor, I think is a better way to put it, kind of a safe harbor idea that's built into this. And just as a practical matter, based on my experience in litigating, as I've mentioned from time to time, I don't just advise public agencies sitting as their district counsel or a deputy city attorney or assistant city attorney, but I go to court and I litigate these cases to judges and juries. A a judge who would hear this challenge is extremely unlikely to take a case of first impression of a brand new law that has no case authority and a good faith attempt by a local agency to implement and comply with that and do anything more than go back and do it again. No monetary relief, no type of pecuniary harm, financial harm to the district. At most, it would be go back and do it again. So another layer of protection should any member of the public or anybody decide that, yeah, the virus isn't that bad. First two conditions are met, and there are a lot of safety measures that underlie the district's position, whichever way it goes. The contrary is true as well. What happens if we say we don't do this and the numbers get worse? Well, the law is the law in terms of what is required for open meetings. And at the next meeting, if the numbers are worse, the board can consider it at that point. So there's a lot of flexibility that is typically missing from these types of laws governing local agencies that thankfully have found their way in through the legislative process into something that has been a real struggle for local agencies to deal with, to provide meaningful access to members of the public, but also meaningful access and ways to participate for elected and appointed officials, some of whom are at risk because of age, infirmity, or being immunocompromised or some other type of comorbidity. Really, I think we've found that in a modern, functional, representative democracy like we have, technology can play a very important part for keeping the wheels of government turning. And AB 361 is I think, a good testament to that fact.
Director Deschler.
Oh, I just want to say, Ross, I appreciate you. This has been a great presentation. Wow. And I just really appreciate all your expertise. The board is in such good hands with you. Don't ever leave. But I did want to ask, so if the board does approve this resolution through October 30th, is it the idea that basically we will revisit this every 30 days?
You're required to. Under
Okay.
the terms, the board is required to consider if it wants to keep meeting remotely, then there is a companion. I drafted the templates for my firm because I've been following this issue. So there would be a second resolution that the board would consider that reaffirms the points made in this initial one to support continuing with remote meetings. That has to be re-upped. It's only good for a 30-day period, and that it has to go before the board again to be reaffirmed in order for it to keep being used. That is a public transparency and accountability component to ensure that the remote meeting process is not used to basically go around the open meeting laws and the purpose of providing access to the public.
All right. Any other questions from board members?
I still have an opinion when we get to that point.
Well, let's go ahead and start opinions. Go ahead, Director Freeman.
Okay, I'm really glad that the state has thought through this and given us this option in order to be able to continue with this. I'm somebody who actually is at higher risk for complications related to things like COVID due to an underlying lung disorder. It actually is related to then, I just like directly related actually. So when we did the meeting 2 months ago where everyone was in person, and I purposely was the one person who wasn't here, and there were camera issues, and I decided it's probably not that big to come over the camera issues. And then the next day we get the email saying that one of the people who was here at our tiny little meeting had been exposed to COVID the previous day. It was just like kind of really I put a strong underscore on the idea that we're not really out of the woods on this yet. I helped the San Ynez Community Service District with their remote meetings and doing things like this. And they had a meeting 2 months ago, and then the next meeting we learned that one of their directors had ended up having COVID, and then like her whole family ended up getting COVID. It was just like the whole thing, right? And so I I hide in my car a lot during those meetings. I just kind of set everything up ahead of the thing. And then as you saw when we had the overlap meeting where I was helping them at the same time as I was sitting in my car doing our meeting, so I could be up there. I also know that at least one person I think on our board is maybe not know, but I think one person on our board disagrees with me on this premise. But I think it's better for the public to have the fully remote meetings. I think that what ends up happening is that it allows for every person who is involved in the meeting to have their own microphone and their own camera, and it ends up being an incredibly high quality, I think, experience. I've spent a lot of time thinking through how to do hybrid meetings, and so here I am actually now the one person theoretically in person at the meeting, although it's because I'm here alone. And you can see the quality of this. I think the audio here is working really well, which is great. But I think the video and the interaction that people end up having during the meeting is an important component. And I'm low resolution, small. If you were to have a group of people up here, it's difficult to pull off a hybrid meeting in a reasonable way. It's not I've seen other districts, including local ones here in Isla Vista, who have done the board meets in person and then the public is forced remote. And I almost sometimes get to the point where I start questioning when you have the board meeting in public and they're able to get that high quality interaction of seeing each other and everything, but then the people are on the other side of a small camera. I sometimes question whether or not that's it's almost like a different meeting that people are experiencing. So I'm very excited to continue as much as we can doing remote meetings and doing as much as we can fully remote meetings due to the health issues and due to that I personally believe that it is better for the public from an accessibility standpoint as well as from a quality of interaction and meeting standpoint. And I say this as somebody who is frantically trying to make certain that when we do end up getting potentially just forced to do the in-person meeting, or whether we end up deciding to do in-person meetings, to provide as thick of an interaction for the public as I can. Okay.
Thank you for that, Director Freeman. Are there any other comments from members of the board? Director Deschler.
The only comment that I have is that I think there definitely is a value to doing remote. I think that it's very interactive. I think that, we all have an opportunity to speak. The members of the public can participate. But I just have to say that I don't necessarily, I would say to Jay's point, I do wonder about people in the Isla Vista community who are not able to access, who have the resources, the technology to access these board meetings. And I just think that we ought to be mindful of that and make sure that we are providing as much accessibility to people who may not have the internet bandwidth, the camera, the other resources that they need to be able to access really important information about their community.
And I appreciate both of your comments. I think that there are two really important discussions here. One is this broader discussion that we're having about how do we make sure we're accessible and how do we make sure that the meetings are open to the public, that they're in accordance with health regulations. And then I think there's the one that we're faced with today, which is can we continue moving forward with the way that we've been doing things during the pandemic? And I think Ross laid it out very clearly and well for us that we should move forward with this resolution. I mean, we're under a public health emergency. We continue to be, and we don't know the future of what's in store. So I'm very supportive of this resolution. I'm also supportive of us continuing to have that broader conversation, and want to thank Director Freeman for working to get the hybrid situation worked out. I know it's something that I'm really interested in as well, and I appreciate you working on it. I think that for the time being, adopting this resolution is kind of a no-brainer. Any other comments from board members? All right, if not, I think we'll entertain a motion.
Who's going to be brave enough to make this motion? That's what I want to know.
I would like to make the motion, but I just wasn't certain what the wording should be, so I put it off.
The motion would be to adopt the resolution.
I move to adopt the resolution 21-7.
Second.
Made by Freeman, seconded by Topliff. Is there any public comment on this? Any other board discussion? All right, Jonathan, let's do a roll call vote.
Director Brandt,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Deshler,
Yes.
Bertrand,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Topliff.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thanks, everyone. We'll move to reports, and we'll start with reports from members of the board. Any board members have reports they'd like to give? Director Flaherty.
Well, most of it was mentioned earlier in the first item, but I also wanted to mention that tomorrow I will be serving on an interview panel. UCPD requested or reached out to me asking if I would like to serve on the panel to hire their new CSO coordinator, which is really exciting. So I'm really excited to be a part of that. That's for tomorrow morning. So I'll let you know how that all goes when I'm able to. And yeah, just it was really related to what we work on here. So
Excellent. Thank you for that report, Catherine. Director Bertrand.
Yes, thank you. Apologies, I've been dropped in and out of this call a few times tonight, some technical difficulties, but anyway, thanks everyone for a great meeting. A couple things to report. First off, I know we're all so excited to have school back in session, and I think in many ways we saw a transformation of our community overnight or over the course of a few days when UCSB did their move-in, and it's really exciting to see. It's really exciting to welcome new community members, and I'm glad that we're doing a lot to make sure that folks know about our services. Yesterday, the Daily Nexus published online a article that has a list of IVCSD resources, which was really great. And I'm working to reach out to some professors of large classes with lots of first and second year students to just give kind of the elevator pitch on who we are at the IVCSD, some of the services we offer, and how people can connect with us. So just trying to do that outreach for folks who are new and looking to get involved. And then one more thing I'll mention is after our Halloween discussion, I went back and looked at my notes, and just to give some more information for the Park District's Halloween plan, it's actually a multi-night event from Wednesday to Friday night, and it's called the Haunted Pumpkin Patch, an interactive family-friendly Halloween Haunted Pumpkin Patch event. So just wanted to provide that follow-up information after looking back. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Director Bertrand. Any other board members have reports? I'll add one thing briefly. I just want to thank the Santa Barbara County Association of Governments Traffic Solutions for bringing out electric bike share, and Supervisor Joan Hartman's office for inviting us to join. I know myself, Director Deshler, and Director Flaherty, and Jonathan all got to ride some electric bikes. They were super fun. And I think that electric bike share is going to continue to be a really important new technology and solution that we have in our toolbox as communities to try and reduce carbon emissions and get people biking. And so got to speak with the director of the B-Cycle program. And I know she's been aware for a bit about our STEP grant process, but hoping that there can be some synergy there with electric bike share in that process. And I think I saw a hand from Director Deshler.
Oh, that was so much fun. That bike, oh gosh, that was fun. I was just going to mention that there are ongoing meetings happening with campus leadership on Halloween planning, and there's going to be a meeting tomorrow. And I know that there's a lot of ideas, but no firm plans yet for Halloween activities. So just FYI on that.
Excellent. Thank you for that report, Director Deschler. All right, we're going to move now to report from standing and ad hoc committees. Any committees have reports? Hand from Director Bertrand. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Our Nightlife Arts and Cultural Planning Ad Hoc Committee met with our General Manager and our Director of Community Engagement, Sydney Kessler. We had a really great meeting, and we now have a number of dates in October for pop-up outreach events. We've updated our survey, and after we do some of these pop-up outreach events, we'll be working on moving to some more larger community meetings. But really excited for the outreach in the field that we'll be doing, and want to thank staff for helping put this together and bringing great ideas.
Thank you for that report, Director Bertrand. And our the committee charged with the planning has not officially met. I've had some conversations with Director Topliff, but I think we're going to want to try and schedule something with the entire committee sometime soon. Any other committee reports? All right, seeing none, we'll move to report from District Council.
Thank you, President Brandt. I have a couple of quick announcements. Shouldn't take too long. First is I've been corresponding with Jonathan on COVID relief funding. I've given reports to the board at various times throughout the pandemic on measures at the federal and state level to help offset some of the increased costs to local agencies and having to deal with the consequences of running a government agency during a 100+ year in the making pandemic. Initially, there was going to be no money allocated specifically for special districts at the federal level through lobbying through the National Organization for Special Districts that was pushed through the federal level to provide some allocation, but basically left it to the states. Thankfully, the state stepped in, and in part of the governor's budget was to allocate of that money $100 million to go specifically to special districts, whereas before special districts would have to apply to the counties where they were situated to try and get some of that money to offset those COVID costs. There is going to be implementation of various programs. Jonathan's looking into that. So there may be an opportunity for the district to recover some of the costs that it incurred with respect to responding to COVID-19, including legal fees, purchasing supplies, and some other specific categories. So there may be a chance to recover some of those funds. Second, thank you for welcoming Jamie Traxler from my office as Assistant District Counsel. She was very excited when I told her all about IVCSD. She thought it was a great local government agency. She wanted to be involved. And so she studied up on the district and its history and its authorizing statute and jumped in, and per her comments to me, I loved every minute of it, which is good because I'm actually set for 2 federal court trials currently scheduled for November 7th and December 7th in downtown Los Angeles. So those trials may take me away from you a little bit longer, a little bit more, certainly more than I would like, but thankfully I'll work with Jonathan on issues where I'm not in trial or preparing for trial. And Jamie is part of that loop now in regular communication and is assisting on projects and getting to know names and faces for everybody. So of course, I keep Jonathan updated on my schedule if I'm ever going to be out. He knows ahead of time, and Spencer as well. So there aren't any surprises. And just wanted to say hi to Director Topliff. It's my first opportunity to reach out to you and say welcome. I'm looking forward to working with you as the county representative. And of course, if you have any questions, I work for the entire board, but I answer all the director's questions as they come in. So please feel free to reach out to my office. If I can't answer the question, if Jamie can't answer the question, then one of the benefits of hiring a firm as your general counsel is I can usually find somebody who knows the answer pretty quickly. So welcome, and I'm glad to be working with you. And that concludes my report. Thank you, President Brandt.
Excellent. Thank you for that report, Council, and please send our thanks to Ms. Traxler as well. We'll move to your report from General Manager.
Cool. We are almost done to have a shortish meeting, but I'll get my report in. So let's see, community engagement. Sydney is working on a lot of different projects for us that are going to our goals. Just want to highlight some. The website update is continuing, so if you keep checking out the website, it just keeps getting better. So just keep going back. And then the community calendar is something that she's working on. A newsletter for the community. We got a website on redistricting information published that affects Isla Vista. Thankfully, not the CSD, affects our residents. So we have that information out. Based, what Ethan said, we're working on building out a class list so we can operationalize that for the future. The STEP survey, getting the survey done that hopefully 4,000 people will take. And then setting up an accessible meetings, a best practices workshop, and working on the nightlife tabling that was mentioned, getting that organized. So she's been a great new member of our team now for 2 months. So it's not new anymore. But we're also working on things like marketing materials that you might have seen published, like the Sustainable Move-In, or there's a new one just now on the website. It's the roommate best practices article that's tied to the mediation program. And it suggests then go to mediation if you have an issue. And then there's one that's going to be published soon, which is sustainable transportation in Isla Vista and how to navigate transportation in the community. So some great stuff. And then we also signed Sydney up for a premier public engagement training class that CARB recommended to us from the who gave us a grant. So great things there. Compost Collective, I reported already. Things are going great there. And yeah, Carly has done an amazing job at getting the St. Mike's Compost Site is now officially 100% done and open, and so we can look to the future. Ivy Beautiful, here's a quick report on what they worked on from the 18th to the 25th. They identified 46 issues, 34 trash related, 5 obstructions to the public right of way, 6 graffiti, and 1 issue of vandalized public property. And they had 11 still to resolve, mainly trash and obstruction issues that they couldn't handle. Safety stations, we got our 2 launched, and we are working with IVRPD on a use agreement before we're able to expand to the 3. So we're delayed there on our Greek Park / Sea Lookout Park expansion. But I just emailed UCPD today. I see Ariel's on here about maybe we can find an interim 3rd location in the meantime that we don't need an agreement for. So we'll see what we can do. But we are also, me and Ross are aware of the IVRPD's request and waiting to see their proposal to us of an agreement for use of the parks for the safety stations. The rental housing mediation program, we're also working on a new, I don't know what to call it, on a new service, which is a house roommate standard social contract that people can download from our website and use. We already have a COVID-19 behavior social contract. So now it's like for your house or roommate, what are your behaviors? Do you use my dishes? Do you not? Things like that. So people can download this and use it without us, or they can use it with us, but it's like a tool for them to empower themselves. So Sayer, our mediator, our contractor, he's working on that. Library services, exciting. They start on October 4th on Monday from 2 to 7. They're going to stay at 2 to 7 for now, but they're going to adjust, I think. And it's a wider calendar. So there's the 2 to 7 at our location, and there's other locations in Isla Vista. So there's a kickoff ribbon cutting at 1:30 on the 4th. I think it's not supposed to be a huge event because of the city of Goleta's COVID restrictions, but I think our board members could be there since we are now, it's our space now that we're reserving. So I think we can be there. And yeah, like I said earlier, we're starting to receive requests a lot for the use of the space. So we're going to be dealing with those. Facility issues, though, if you might have been in the building recently, me and Director Toppel were there today. There's a gas line being repaired right now. So that if you see a lot of construction in the parking lot, it's that. We're also noticing a lot of trash accumulating overnight in front of the community center, and we sometimes get it cleaned up, but it's can't always catch it because it can clean it and then it'll be back the next day sometimes, like late at night. So yeah, like I've seen it clean at 6 p.m. and then dirty again at 8 a.m. the next day. So we're needing to deal with that. And that's going to be a challenge. We'll work on it, at least some signage to help people respect the area. And our facility assessment report is due by October 25th from the consultant. So they'll have it to us by then. Almost done. So lots of stuff is going on. So STEP grant, we got 4 applicants, which is a lot. We thought we were going to maybe get 1. So we got 4 very good proposals. We're like very thorough. So we're excited to review them. We're doing that now. And Sydney's already starting to plan some of the STEP community engagement. The first requirement is having a public workshop to announce the program and like get people more informed. And that's in November. It's going to be in early November. And we have to have a formal engagement plan and the survey questions. So those are being worked on. But the STEP program is just moving along on it, moving forward. And another question I just had maybe for you all to think about is if we want to have another retreat soon, maybe by January, like once a year kind of thing, but it's almost the end of the year. Our parking group, I just sent you, I'm going to send you right now a when to meet so we can have our ad hoc review our parking RFP, but we have most of it done. We just need to figure out some details. And then, yeah, like Spencer said, and Carrie, we talked about planning, and we're going to get together more with our full group to work out, but we started getting an idea of like what we would actually want out of this. And then just some general things. Our new AGM consultant starts tomorrow. We'd had our kickoff and she starts working tomorrow. Our tech is fully set up with all our employees, so everyone's really happy and we have no issues. So it's great. And I'm starting to look at the COVID relief funding, and the board did pass that resolution giving me authority to apply already. So I will just apply. And then the last thing is kind of cool is a local employment agency and UCSB Commission for Disability Equality contacted us about taking on a paid intern, like not someone we pay, someone they pay, and who we would like supervise. And they were thinking like, what would the scope of work be for this person? They really want to work in Isla Vista and make disability access. So we said they can come up with different ways to make our services more accessible to more people in Isla Vista. So we're working with them on that. We won't have to hire anybody, but we would work with them to, what would we need to do to improve the mediation program? How can we improve See-Click-Fix? How can we improve, et cetera, to make it accessible to the disability community? So that's the report.
Excellent. Lots going on. Thanks for the report, Jonathan. Any questions from board members?
I have a question / half or arguably a report.
Go ahead.
So I've been attending the Isla Vista Recreation Park. I mean, I've for a long time. Sorry, for a long time now, I've been attending the Isla Vista Recreation Park District meetings, well, remotely, like recording them. Notably, at the last 2 of those meetings, there have been presentations of their active work on the construction of a community calendar.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Jay. I think that's maybe a good thing for our staff to get in touch with them on, see how there can be some synergy there. Any questions for Jonathan? All right. Well, seeing that, I think we've come to the end of our agenda. Our next meeting will be held October 12th. Is that right? Yes. Wow. I'm so off with the dates. October 12th, 2021 at 6 p.m. on Zoom or at the community room in Isla Vista. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Made by Freeman, seconded by Topliff. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All right, let's do a roll call vote.
Director Brandt,
Yes.
Director Flaherty,
Yes.
Dr. Bertrand,
Yes.
Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Dr. Freeman,
Yes.
Dr. Dashler,
Yes.
Dr. Topliff.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. We'll see you all soon. Hope to see you at the grand opening of the library services.
Hi, everybody.